So, a few years ago, you wrote a book on talent liberation to support a move to inclusive talent management strategies. What's happened since then, and how's your thinking evolved?
Well, the Primeast concept of talent liberation was a bit of a revolution at the time, because this was when the war for talent was prevalent and organisations tended to have fairly divisive talent management strategies where they labelled up something like 10 or 20% of their high potential people as the talent. We were acutely aware at that time, with our background in team engagement, that actually that estranged something like 80 or 90% of the workforce who by inference were not talent. So we started to talk about this at conferences and warn organisations that actually if they neglected the whole of the organisation and its talent, they would be disadvantaging themselves in terms of performance. So since then, we've done all sorts of work. We've worked with the Chartered Management Institute and the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. I regularly run a programme twice a year in London for HR directors to grapple with what is a more progressive way of managing talent that is inclusive and that plays to the strengths of everybody. And in fact, in the last few months, we've run workshops at the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development main conference and one of its specific talent management conferences. And it's just great to engage with people who are working in this day in and day out and understand the things that they're grappling with. And we're now at a stage where we're beginning to realise how important purpose is when it comes to talent management. So what we're advocating is that organisations basically get to know the talents of everybody that turn up to go to work, but also begin to channel that towards the purpose of the organisation in a deliberate manner.
In his book, The Talent Code, Daniel Coyle talks about talent ignition. Is there any connection between this concept and purposeful talent management as suggested in your book?
Daniel Coyle's concept of talent ignition is a powerful one. And basically what Coyle is saying is it's one thing having talent, but it's another thing putting in those thousands of hours of practice that turn that talent into a strength and which actually give people the incentive to bring their talent into play. And in the work that we've done, what we've discovered is that one of the secrets to ignition is purpose. If we're actually supporting something that is compelling and meaningful in our lives, we're more likely to go the extra mile. We're more likely to practice what we do and hone it into a real art than if we're pointing who we are at something that we don't believe in. So Coyle's concept of ignition is powerful, and actually purpose is certainly part of igniting people's talents.
And in the book, you actually offer a pragmatic 8-step approach for purposeful talent management. Could you talk me through the steps at a headline level as a summary?
Okay, well, the 8 steps are a story in their own right, but just going through the 8 steps one by one. The first step is consistent with the whole topic of the book, The Purposeful Organisation, and step number 1 is about direction. What we're saying is that there's no point having a talent management strategy that doesn't support the direction of the organisation. So there has to be a conscious alignment of talent to the direction. And out of that alignment comes step number 2, which is a philosophy. In other words, what do we believe about talent? For example, do we believe everybody's got talent, or is it the domain of the privileged few? Do we also believe that we get more power out of playing to people's strengths, or should we focus on fixing people's weaknesses? These are all the sorts of things that we need to consider in the philosophy. And then out of that philosophy, we can hold it against the structures, the processes, the policies in the organisation, and begin to tune what we do to fit the philosophy. So to give you a quick example, performance appraisal. If we beat people up at the end of the year for the things that they've done badly, we're hardly focusing on their strengths and the things that they do well. And if we've got a philosophy of focusing on strength, that has to be reflected in performance appraisal and all the other performance techniques in the organisation. So once we've done that and we've looked at process, which is that step number 3, arising out of that comes a plan, things that need to change to bring the processes in tune with both the philosophy and the direction of the business. And then once we have a plan, we can get into step number 5, which is communicating. The reason we don't communicate earlier is that if we start to communicate our philosophy or our direction without a plan, then our people will just say, okay, that's great, but what are you doing about it? Step number 6 is about leadership development, because in actual fact talent management needs to become cultural, and things become cultural in organisations when managers and leaders actually show the way. They role model the sorts of behaviours that people want to see, and so for example they will role model a deliberate and conscious effort of playing to their own strengths in the organisation. Getting down to step number 7, it's about team development, aligning the talents of everybody in every team in the organisation to the purpose of that team, and then by virtue of the fact that that purpose is aligned to the corporation's purpose, we have alignment throughout the organisation through focus on talent within teams. Step number 8 is about review. You couldn't have any good process without some kind of review to keep it in check and to improve it as time goes by.